Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. As you guys can see, we're doing some more history content videos once again. In my last video, we did 31st President Herbert Hoover. This time, we are doing George H.W. Bush, who became the 41st President of the United States and also the 43rd Vice President. He was a vice president to Ronald Reagan. When he got assassinated, he had to become president straight away. Which I kind of feel bad for this guy, but yeah. Technically, George H.W. Bush is the second oldest living president to die in the 90s, which we'll get to that soon. And also, I'm doing it in order because I use this app called Spin the Wheel. It helps me to pick which US presidents I do for each one. And I've done 3 already, but this is my 3rd video. Then I think in my next video, we're going to be doing another 2. So let's start. George H.W. Bush. George Herbert Walker Bush was born on June 12, 1924 to November 30th, 2018. He was an American politician, diplomat, and businessman who served as the 41st President of the United States from 1989 to 1993. A member of the Republican Party, he also served as the 43rd Vice President from 1981 to 1989 under Ronald Reagan and previously in various other federal positions. This is his official portrait in 1989. This is when he entered office. George H.W. Bush was 64 when he took office. He was exactly the same age as Zachary Taylor was. Yep, he was a bit older. 41st President of the United States. He was in office on January 20th, 1989 to January 20th, 1993. Basically, he actually served only one full term as president because he didn't run for a second term. He lost to a Democrat president. His vice president was Dan Quayle. He was preceded by Ronald Reagan and was succeeded by Bill Clinton. The 43rd Vice President of the United States. He was in office from January 20th, 1981 to January 20th, 1989. Technically, he did serve 2 terms as vice president because Ronald Reagan did serve 2 terms. The president that he was vice president to was Ronald Reagan. He was preceded by Walter Mondale, who was the vice president to Jimmy Carter. And if you want to see the video about how I did the life of Walter Mondale, I will leave the video on the top right-hand corner to explain to you. And was succeeded by Dan Quayle, who was his vice president. Basically, yeah. The 11th Director of Central Intelligence. He was in office from January 30th, 1976 to January 20th, 1977. The president was Gerald Ford. The deputy was Vernon A. Walters and E. Henry Kanochi. He was preceded by William Colby and was succeeded by Stanfield Turner. Second Chief of the United States Liaison Office to the People's Republic of China. Jeez, this guy's been in a lot of offices. He was in office from September 26th, 1974 to December 7th, 1975. The president is still Gerald Ford. He was preceded by David K.E. Bruce and was succeeded by Thomas S. Gates Jr. And chair of the Republican National Committee. He was in office from January 19th, 1973 to September 16th, 1974. He was preceded by Bob Dole and was succeeded by Mary Smith. 10th United States Ambassador to the United Nations. He was in office from March 1st, 1971 till January 18th, 1973. The president was Richard Nixon. See my video where I did the life of Richard Nixon. was preceded by Charles Yost and was succeeded by John A. Scale, and member of the U.S. House of Representatives from Texas 7th District. He was in office from January 3rd, 1967 till January 3rd, 1971. He was preceded by John Dewey and was succeeded by Bill Archer. Let's look at his personal details. He was born as George Herbert W. Walker Bush on June 12, 1924, in Milton, in Massachusetts. He died on November 30th, 2018, aged 94, in Houston, in Texas. His resting place is George H.W. Bush Presidential Library and Museum, named after him. His political party is Republican. He married Barbara Pierce in 1945, but she died in 2018. Technically, she changed her last name from Pierce to Bush. The last time we see the last name Pierce was from the 14th president, Franklin Pierce. You see, Barbara Pierce is probably the reason why where she does have the same last name as Pierce did, Franklin Pierce did, but she changed it to Barbara Bush, like George H.W. Bush's last name. Their children were George, Robin, Jeb, Neville, Marvin, and Dorothy. I think the oldest child was George W. Bush, who is actually a son of him. His parent is Prescott Bush, his father. We don't know his mother. The relatives is the Bush family. His education is Yale University, BA. His occupation was a businessman, diplomat, and a politician. His nickname is Skin. And this is George H.W. Bush's voice. Bush announces the Gulf War. It was recorded on January 16th, 1991. And it's like 6 minutes long. Born into a wealthy, established family in Milton, Massachusetts, Bush was raised in Greenwich, Connecticut. He attended Phillips Academy and served as a pilot in the United States Navy reserves during World War II, before graduating from Yale and moving to West Texas, where he established a successful oil company. Following an unsuccessful run for the United States Senate in 1964, he was elected to represent Texas' 7th Congressional District in 1966. President Richard Nixon appointed Bush as the ambassador to the United Nations in 1971 and as chairman of the Republican National Committee in 1973. President Gerald Ford appointed him as the chief of liaison office to the People's Republic of China in 1974 and as the director of Central Intelligence in 1976. Bush ran for the president in 1980 but was defeated in the Republican presidential primaries by Reagan, who then selected Bush as his vice presidential running mate. In the 1988 presidential election, Bush defeated Democrat Michael Dukakis. How do you even say that? I don't know. Foreign policy drove Bush's presidency as he navigated the final years of the Cold War and played a key role in the reunification of Germany, which basically, Germany was around at the time. He praised over the invasion of Palmyra and the Gulf War, ending in the Iraq occupation of Kuwait in the later conflict. Though the agreement was not ratified until after he left office, Bush negotiated and signed the North American Free Trade Agreement, which created a trade bloc consisting of the United States, Canada, and Mexico. Domestically, Bush regained on a 1988 campaign promise by enacting legislation to raise taxes to justify reducing the budget deficit. He championed and signed 3 pieces of baptization legalization in 1990. The Americans with Disabilities Act, the Immigration Act, and the Clean Air Act amendments. He also appointed David Souter and Clarence Thomas to the Supreme Court. Bush lost the 1992 presidential election to Democrat Bill Clinton following an economic recession. His turnaround on his tax promise and the decreased emphasis for foreign policy in a post-Cold War political climate. After leaving office in 1993, Bush was active in humanitarian activities, often working alongside Clinton. With the victory of his son, George W. Bush, in the 2000 presidential election, the two became the second father-son pair to serve as the nation's president, following John Adams and John Quincy Adams. Another son, Jeb Bush, unsuccessfully sought the Republican presidential nomination in the 2016 primaries. Historians generally rank Bush as an above-average president. Ooh. Now, obviously, let's look at his post-presidency. Technically, George H.W. Bush has a post-presidency of 25 years. That is why he has been around. Let's look at, technically we have 2. I don't know. We don't know when he was married, though. We know he married, Barbara Pierce in 1945, so probably during that. Let's look at his post-presidency. After leaving office, Bush and his wife built a retirement house in the community of West Oaks, Houston. He established a presidential office within the park. Oh wow, that is a lot of information. He established a presidential office within the Park Libre building on Memorial Drive in Houston. So that is him and Barbara. Final years. Let's look at his death and funeral. So this is the members of the Republic. The public pay their respects at the casket of President Bush lying in the altar of the U.S. Chapel in Washington, D.C. So technically that's where his resting place is, but the funeral was in Washington, D.C. So you know Woodrow Wilson, he's the only president to be buried in Washington, D.C. After a long battle with vascular Parkinson's disease, Bush died at his home in Houston on November 30th, 2018, at the age of 94. At the time of his death, he was the longest-lived U.S. president, a distinction now held by Jimmy Carter. He was also the third oldest vice president. Bush lay in state in the altar of the U.S. Chapel from December 3rd through December 5th. He was the 12th U.S. president to be accorded this honor. Then, on December 5th, Bush's casket was transferred from the chapel altar to Washington National Cathedral, where a state funeral was held. After the funeral, Bush's body was transported to George H.W. Bush Presidential Library in College Station, Texas, where he was buried next to his wife Barbara and daughter Robin. Oh no, they were all buried together. At the funeral, former President George W. Bush inaugurated his father, saying he looked for the good in each person and he usually found it. I think when George W. Bush took that quote, he was probably crying because of his only son. I just feel bad. He was crying, probably. So I think that's going to be the end of the video. We don't know George H.W. Bush's mother. We know his father, though, but we don't know his mother because his mother is completely unknown. If you did enjoy this video, make sure to like and subscribe for more videos like this. I even have a fun fact. George H.W. Bush has 2 surnames. One, Herbert, which is named after Herbert Hoover, and 1 Walker. Basically, it's like the name of President Herbert Hoover, but yeah, I know. Yeah, make sure you like and subscribe for some more history content videos like this. I'll see you guys in my next video.